2, 1. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Captain Logan Show. 'Tis I, Captain Logan. And joining me this evening is my buddy Nick Stevens from the Genesis Gems podcast. Hello, Nick.
How we doing?
How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Of course. Thanks for being here. I have been meaning to have you on for a good long time. And this is crazy. It's just us. There's no DJ this evening.
That's a lot of pressure on me, man. First time show.
You're going to have to do a DJ impression, Nick. I'm sorry. It's all there is to it.
I don't do impressions well. I got to. I'm always told I have too monotone of a voice, so I can do like James, not James Earl Jones, but one of the guys on our listens to our podcast calls me Barry White of the podcast world. So I'm not sure if that's true, but I get called that a lot.
I was going to say that'd be pretty amazing. You're like, I'm not good at impressions. The one thing I could do is James Earl Jones.
No, I didn't mean him.
That's fantastic.
I wish I could. As I drink my Darth Vader coffee mug here. If my video is not too laggy, you can see that.
This is a good night for that, too, because it's going to be really hard to not talk nothing but Star Wars this evening. And if it wasn't for Nick, I would have broadcast without even knowing about this. An hour ago, I find out from Nick, oh, by the way, there's like a million shows on Disney Plus that have been announced for Star Wars today. I knew there was an investor meeting, and so I figured there was going to be some stuff at some point. I didn't think we'd have anything today, and I don't know if we even have everything. The article that I looked at said that we were supposed to have announcements for 10 new Star Wars shows and 10 Marvel shows, and 10 apiece, not 10 altogether. 10 Star Wars, 10 Marvel, and I don't think that's 10 new Marvel. I think that's including the ones we already knew about, so I don't know if there's anything new there, but I'll talk about what I know about when we get there. Anyway, welcome everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in to the show this evening. We're going to chat with you for at least an hour, but with as much as is going on tonight, I'll be real surprised if we don't go the full 2. Like I said, I don't have a moderator tonight, so everybody bear with me. I was kind of kidding a minute ago when I said Nick's going to have to do a DJ impression. Nick is not filling in for DJ. He's not done this before. I'm not going to ask Nick to moderate, and he's our guest co-host, so I want Nick to get to win a lot and not have to spend the whole time working and looking at comments. So I will do some pre-written if we can get to it tonight, folks, but the easiest way, of course, to make sure that your question or comment gets discussed on the air is via Super Chat. We are these days about 90% funded by the audience, so that helps us out a whole lot, and we sure appreciate anybody and everybody who does or ever has done that. But if you don't want to do that, I will try to get to a few Super Chats if I can, and as always, we really appreciate you just for popping in and listening to us, and I don't know why anybody cares about what I have to say, but it is so cool for you guys to pop in and hang out with us. We always really appreciate it. And we're going to go ahead and just kind of jump right into the lead-in story this evening. And I guess we sort of have to now. We were going to talk pretty much at the beginning here just about what is looking like the likelihood, although I'm not seeing it confirmed, but of Charlie Cox coming into... Yeah, a lot of that. Spider-Man 3. And, Nick, it's always hard to tell what's rumor territory and what isn't. But the last couple days, especially with this Spider-Man 3 stuff, I'm hearing, like, so many names thrown around. At this point, I have a hard time not just assuming it's all happening. It seems like it's probably all happening.
It feels that way. And I follow this Instagram page that puts out like kind of fake movie trailer posters, and I keep believing it. I'll see it. I'm like, oh my gosh, all these people are in this movie. And I'm like, oh wait, no, they're just doing that speculation. But yeah, there's been so many announcements of bringing back the original guys from 1 and 2, and Doc Ock was going to be in it, and oh, here comes Daredevil from Netflix show. It's like whoa, just coming from everywhere. So yeah, I don't know what to believe or what's out there. It's pretty interesting though.
I say it's funny. You said that like a comic cover. Here comes Daredevil, the man without fear. Yeah. So we did a show talking about some of the Spider-Man 3 casting the other day, talking about Doc Ock, because that was announced on Tuesday. And we were like, oh man, there's big news the day we're doing this show. And then immediately after that, we're talking like a few hours after that show, it became outdated. And people were kind of laughing about that in the comments, where it was like, and so we talked about the Daredevil campaign, I don't know if you know about this, Nick, but a lot of people coming together trying to get, now that the rights have reverted back to Marvel for Daredevil, trying to get Marvel to bring, or Disney to bring that show back. And then we were talking about the Doc Ock thing separately. And now they're connected news. And so now we have to talk about that this evening. So yeah, Nick, what are your immediate thoughts on specifically the Daredevil thing? I mean, I don't know if you watched that show, but like, is that a thing you want to see? Do you want to see Cox actually brought back in that role under Disney, knowing what Disney, the way Disney's making their films versus the way Netflix was making their shows? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, and I don't know if I'll get any hate for this, but I think Daredevil was the only Netflix Marvel show that I really enjoyed. I tried watching the other ones like Iron Fist and Cage, but Daredevil is the one I really like. So I think for me, and I'm not too picky, but any way or fashion we can see more of that Daredevil, I think that'd be awesome. I'm not too familiar with a lot of the multiverse stuff, so like getting Daredevil in the Spider-Man movie is a little confusing to me. But either way, I mean, I'm happy to see more Daredevil. I'm honestly a little worried about all these announcements for Spider-Man. I don't want that to get it too crazy. I've kind of enjoyed the past couple Spider-Man movies, and I'm afraid they're trying to do a little too much here, getting too many people in there. But I don't know. It's interesting to try to keep up with. if nothing else, they're making a lot of money off ad clicks and all these companies for all these new articles that are coming up. But yeah, I don't know. The Daredevil thing's interesting. I like the dark nature of it, so I don't know if Disney would try to take that away and make it a little bit more lighthearted, more family friendly. But I don't know. I like what I have on Netflix. I hope I can keep seeing that kind of storyline. And the dude that plays Kingpin, I never can remember the actor's name.
D'Onofrio.
Yeah, I know he's from Men in Black. He's the guy, the bug guy from Men in Black.
And he disappears in everything he's in too, because it's like, oh wait, it's that guy. When he was in Jurassic World, I was like, oh, it's that guy.
Yeah. So like, I think he was one of the best Kingpins I've ever seen, or that could ever happen. So it's really cool.
Yeah, of course. A lot to unpack there. So as far as the multiverse thing goes, Marvel, MCU, of course, has not delved into this yet, but we knew they were going to after the kind of reveal in Doctor Strange that we do have multiple universes. Then Endgame kind of made a big deal out of branching off universes and Doctor Strange being able to see different permeations in the future. And then, of course, his next film has multiverse in the title. So we already knew that we were going there, and the assumption was that Doctor Strange and the Spider-Man movies were already going to be very linked because Doctor Strange has been cast, also one of 6 billion cameos or guest stars that has been cast in Spider-Man 3. He was already in there before we heard about any of this potential for crossover with the other franchises that we thought were dead. As far as Daredevil goes, when you said you were confused, and I understand why. There's every reason to be confused, and I'm confused about this too because I don't know what exactly it means. And we'll talk about lots of confusing things with some of the villain casting as well, because my mind exploded the other day with this whole thing. The big question is, does this recanonicize or recontextualize Charlie Cox's Daredevil? Because we all thought for a while that the Netflix shows were definitely canonical with the MCU. They, of course, in their own shows talked about it like that. They used the incident from 2012 Avengers as a jumping-off point. And so, like, Hell's Kitchen is now a horrible, violent place riddled with street crime again in a way that it wasn't. And I always loved that plot point, by the way, because Hell's Kitchen these days in real life is not the violent place that it was in, like, the 70s. But then the Chitauri thing happens, and now it is again. And I always thought that was a really great idea. But the way I look at it at this point, and of course, the Netflix shows and the movies never talk to each other. Just like with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they hardly talk to each other. There are a lot of reasons for that. The TV side and the movie side didn't like each other, and so like one would reference the other, but the other one would not. So the movies were canonical with Daredevil, but Daredevil was not canonical with the movies. As soon as you put him in those movies, all bets are off. Or are they? Because there's every possibility that they basically recast Charlie Cox as another Daredevil. And kind of. Or they could be really, really ambiguous about it. Also keep in mind that Sony is like running point on the Spider-Man movies, and they seem very confused about the universes and the timelines. They can't decide if the Venomverse is in the MCU or not. We've got Michael Keaton at the end of the Morbius trailer. How does that work? I thought we were in a different universe. Venom becomes Venom without Spider-Man, but apparently maybe in a universe where Spider-Man is. How does that work?
Yeah.
And so it's
this whole like
very confusing.
The whole multiverse thing. Yeah. The whole multiverse thing is crazy.
Well, and again, as far as the multiverse goes, that's just a device to be able to bring in anything you want to if you make it all about different universes. But I think they could be really ambiguous about the Daredevil thing. It's so weird to sort of kind of have both, I think. And we may be in that place. So I'm of two minds about the Charlie Cox Daredevil thing. I know I say two minds a lot. I'm of two minds about this. I said the other day that I was not excited about the possibility of Disney bringing back Charlie Cox, and people said, "Well, Cap, of course they could bring back Charlie Cox. They're bringing." And this was before we heard about all the Spider-Man 3 news. They're bringing back Jamie Foxx, and I'm like, that's a different situation. Because that's probably multiversal crossover, or maybe just recasting the same actor as a different version of that character. Regardless, if Disney brings back Charlie Cox, you are not going to get that show again. There's no way Disney makes that show. Or I would be really, really surprised if that were the case. So when people were asking me about that, I was like, I would much rather see it completely recast, because if they do a PG-13, more kind of action, adventure-oriented Daredevil, I'm fine with that. You can do Daredevil that way, absolutely, but it needs to be a totally different thing. It needs to be recast. We don't need, I said this the other day, I don't want a situation like Matt Ryan's Constantine, where he's in a really dark, rough-and-tumble show, and then we put him at the teeny bopper CW. In those shows. I don't want to see that for Daredevil. So, when I say two minds, this is the other side of it, though. If they say all those shows happen and are canonical, and there's not really anything that I can think of, maybe some people in the comments will think of some stuff. I can't think of anything that would immediately contradict the MCU about, those shows actually being said finally, yes, they count. If he's in like a cameo role and they don't change what he is, and he's just in a different context, that's not a huge deal. That could be fun. I don't really have a problem with that. What I don't want is we then spin him off into his own much more watered down, less grounded kind of show. That's the main thing I'm concerned about.
Yeah, it's true. It's funny. I did read a couple of the comments here, and I thought it was kind of interesting. Someone thought maybe all these cameos are just going to be like a Doctor Strange type of he's kind of doing his thing, and you just kind of see little blips of all these people in different multiverses. And it kind of reminded me of like what Deadpool did with when he kind of did a cameo, or went back to the old Wolverine movie where that Ryan Reynolds was there, and he was trying to erase that. Like that was kind of clever. So maybe
and it made no sense at all.
Yeah, and I loved it. And there was just something about like that's great. I don't get it, but this is amazing. I mean, the Deadpool's kind of famous for that, kind of pulling that curtain. But it's I don't know. Maybe they could do something clever with that. And not
sure, but I think we got to be careful about making too much of a habit out of that. And the other thing is. If they are, and here's the thing, I suspect that most of this is more than straight up cameos. Not that every character can get a whole ton of screen time, but I think it's going to be closer to a lot of the in-game guest stars, where they're actually there for a few minutes and they get some dialogue and they get to do some things. Don't announce everything, and even as much as we have, if it's all just cameos. That's what the CW did when they did Crisis, and it was awful. Because that show was really, really bad. And what excited a lot of people about Crisis was, here's all these characters from different DC media, from different shows that haven't been on the air for decades, that you're going to get to see. And they're there for 20 seconds, a lot of them. And the ones that are there longer, some of them they kind of ruin. Like Tom Welling's cameo, Clark Kent from Smallville, is the worst thing I've ever seen. And they they do that, and I'm like, I don't even know that some of it would have seemed as awful. It was bad, but I mean, I would have enjoyed the fan service of that, as bad as the story was, more if I didn't know about every single one of them before I went in. So, like, I don't like that all this is being announced, But I'm curious about it because we weren't told about every single cameo in Endgame. Some of that stuff got to surprise us, which means doesn't this have to be more substantial? Why would you tell us about it this early?
Yeah. And maybe with everything that's going on in the world in the quarantine, there's just more people sitting around making speculation. I don't know, but I'm with you. I would rather it be a surprise than anything. Like, especially if it's a cameo, if it's a 2 second shot in the film, I want to be shocked and
Well, don't tell me about it. What is the point
yeah,
of that?
yeah, exactly. Like I love those little things, and I don't want to switch it to Star Wars, but like, if you don't watch The Mandalorian, that Friday, you get spoiled so fast on Facebook. And that's what I like about that show. It's like they're kind of keeping some things under wraps. I'm like, oh, this person popped up or that happened. To me, that makes it fresh, makes it more exciting. And I don't want to know every cameo that's going to happen. So maybe it's not. Maybe it's not a cameo. Maybe this is all just kind of speculation. But I don't know.
It's weird. It's all under the same house. Why are we so much more careful about it with Star Wars than we are Marvel?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I didn't even think about that.
I think that's very strange. I'm gonna say what I said the other day. I'm standing by this. The biggest thing I'm concerned about with Spider-Man 3 is I like Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I think it's the closest to classic comic Spider-Man we've ever had. I think we kind of wasted the story in 2. I like Far From Home a lot, but we didn't move far enough with the character progression. And the very next thing we're gonna do is throw everything in the pot. Like, this should be a separate movie, and I feel that way. And I mean, we've not seen these films yet, so hopefully they win me over. And I don't want to be a naysayer. I hope I love them, but if I liked Ezra Miller's Flash, I would say this about Flash. I don't, so I don't care as much with that. With Flash, they're doing this multiverse thing also, and they're basically adapting very loosely Flashpoint. We don't know if it's called Flashpoint yet. We don't know what that is, but they're doing this whole multiverse thing with that as well. And if I liked that character, I would say, can you make it its own movie? Does it have to be the standalone Flash movie? I really feel that way about this. Make it its own thing. I mean, I don't need a live-action Spider-Verse. We've already got the animated Spider-Verse, and the next movie for Spider-Verse is not a spin-off from that movie with 2099 or something. It's Spider-Verse 2. So we're gonna just keep doing this with everything?
Oh, I know. And then where does the video game fall into play? Because like I was trying to explain all this to my son because he's wondering, well, how come this Peter's not the same Peter in the movie than this guy in the cartoon and the old like yeah, there's a lot of Spider-Man to kind of eat up right now because we've been playing the PS5 game, the Miles Morales, and that's a whole nother universe of Spider-Man there too that doesn't involve the movies. So it's like I don't know how to explain this to you, buddy. I'm confused.
Well, I mean, it's all different continuities. I don't think it's too tough to everything's got to be multiverse to explain to a kid this is a different version of this character, and then over here is a different version. Once we start mixing them, it's maybe more complicated to explain that to kids. But yeah, I'm having a hard time getting excited about this, and it sounds like fan service the movie, and I know there's a lot of people that are stoked, and I get this. There are people who don't like, who dislike the Tom Holland version with a burning passion, the Iron Boy crowd. Those people are going to be excited about this because they're going to get to see their Spider-Mans or Spider-Men again, and I get that. But and so I mean everybody's going to be in a different place on this potentially because like I'm not reacting to the Michael Keaton Batman thing the same way because I don't like Ezra Miller's Flash. So like I'm more intrigued by that even though I also don't need the multiversal crossover in freaking everything. Another question I've got is how long has Marvel had this under wraps? Like close to the chest? Are they? Have they had a script written for this for several months and just hoped that everybody would sign on, and now they're finally signing on, or were they? Or is some of this a reaction to Flashpoint? It's just a question. I don't know, but are they trying to get ahead of it?
It's an interesting question. I don't know. Like I almost feel like it is fan service. You know these companies are out there making a big buck, and maybe I'm a little bit too much of a conspiracy theorist on that. But I don't know. Like sometimes you'll get the more casual people just going, "Ooh, look at all this fan service. I'm gonna watch this and buy it," and it's just a quick buck. So I hope that's not what is going on. I really don't. But I don't know. It's kind of easy to see that sometimes. So I hope that's not what's going on.
Obviously, I want it to be good. I hope the story's great. even if it is, I can still say it's not what I want. There's no way you make that movie, and I mean, if they do this, I'll be really super impressed, of course. You do the live action Spider-Verse movie in the and I said this the other day, but the third film for Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and I don't see how we get very much more character progression. Like, to be Spider-Man, some really tragic, terrible things need to happen to him, and a lot of that's not happened yet. There's also, of course, the big question of how exactly they're going to handle his being outed as Spider-Man. And I said after that second movie, I imagine they'll probably wipe that away in the first 3 or 4 minutes, and the movie won't actually be about that. With this Spider-Verse thing, I think it's actually now more likely that he stays outed, at least through that movie. Maybe they'll somehow use it to put the genie back in the bottle at the end, and I kind of hope they don't do that, but I could see that, because a lot of people speculated Doctor Strange is going to come in to work his magic and make it so that everybody, do a one more day thing, make it so that everybody forgets that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Now that we're doing the multiversal thing, it's hard to say if that's part of it, but it still easily could be. I don't know.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy, though, that we've lived through 3 different, like, movie, I don't know what you call it, but just 3 different actors playing Spider-Man. Like, I never thought I'd see a Spider-Man growing up, and I see one movie, and now we got 3 different actors or doing Spider-Man period. So,
yeah, and an animated theatrical one that won an Oscar.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
When I did my top 10 superhero movies of the decade on Superhero Rewind, I opened that with a list of all of the insane, topsy-turvy, Twilight Zone things that have happened in the last 10 years in movies that just stuff you could have never predicted, you know what I mean? There's gonna be a standalone Joker movie. It's gonna be made for $55 million. It's gonna make $1 billion. We're gonna have a Venom movie in a universe without Spider-Man. Deadpool is going to make more money than X-Men ever has. Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
But even more crazy than that, Nick, is that we've lived long enough to see the multiversal thing that can't stop permeating comics sneak its way into live-action superhero stuff.
Exactly. I remember when the first X-Men came out back in early 2000s, and I was just like, oh, wow, we finally got, good comics on the film. And then it just, now you can't get away from it. It's everywhere. So it's kind of fun to go back and relive that, because I was so excited. I'm like, I'm never going to miss one of these comic movies again. And then there's probably 4 or 5 I haven't watched in the past 10 years.
Yeah. Blue Dragon 5, I think if we do a Spider-Verse thing, we're going to take Holland out of this universe and replace him with Miles. I could see it. Yeah. I could really see that. Although it's weird, because I've heard the speculation, because people are kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop again with Sony and Marvel. Remember that week where everybody was losing their minds because Sony pulled out and MCU didn't have Spider-Man anymore, and then on day 8 they had him again, or however long it was? People are not expecting that contract to necessarily stick around forever. And if this has anything to do with that, to have like this big hurrah, and then Sony, and I don't know that this is what they're doing, I'm not even necessarily expecting this, but this is the thing that people are speculating about, that they kind of like take the ball, their ball home. Then they have their own homecoming. They have Spider-Man Homecoming again. They take their ball home. Marvel can't then keep running with Miles, because they wouldn't be allowed to use anything called Spider-Man, I wouldn't think, unless they have a really strange contract that says you can't have Peter Parker, but you can have everything else. And also, none of the rogues, you can't have anything from Spider-Man. Miles Morales, there you go, that's all you get.
That's interesting. And looking at different generations, like my boys are like 11 and 8, and they seem to like Miles Morales as much, if not more, than Peter Parker. When they're loving that cartoon or loving that video game, they seem to kind of gravitate more towards him, and I kind of look at that from different generations. Like, well, maybe that's the next thing they need to do, is really build him up. I mean, they're doing a good job. That video game was wonderful. I know it was more of a bite size, but loved the story, and just love. I didn't know too much about Miles Morales until the cartoon came out. So I'll be honest, playing that game was just kind of it was a real good look into his character and his demeanor, and the kids loved it. The kids think he's awesome. So
we also live in a world where a 10-hour campaign with a bunch of side stuff is bite sized.
I know. And we beat it pretty quick. We played that game a lot. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I played through that, and I heard that complaint, and people, made a big deal out of how much smaller it was. And yeah, Sony kind of acted like it was a bigger game than that, and so that's where I think you gotta cry foul. Maybe it should have been a lower price point, but I didn't mind a smaller game.
No.
At the end of the day, I think it should have been 40 and not 50, but.
Yeah. Looking at some of the other PS5 games coming out at 70, maybe I understand that a little bit. I'll take it.
But on the other hand, on the PS5, you got a really good deal because for $70, you got the remaster for the original game and Miles Morales. So if you wanted the remaster, you were essentially getting Miles for free or for $10 more, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah.
So that's cool. But I don't have a PS5 yet. I don't know how you got one, by the way.
I got lucky. I hit the button and it came. Someone sent me a text later. It was like 10 o'clock one night. Said, "Hey, you can get them on Target," and this was months ago.
Nick, they thought you were a bot.
Pre-ordered it, and bam. I was a bot.
You got it because they thought you were a bot.
Yeah. Now I know people trying to buy one now for $700. Like, oh, sorry guys. People have offered me money for mine. I'm like, nope. Staying here with me.
Have you bought much for it yet? I mean, there's not a lot out yet.
No.
I guess.
Nah, I did Miles Morales. I got that new Cyberpunk game coming in. Supposed to be here in the next few days. So I unfortunately pre-ordered it a little later. Didn't get it today.
I'm thinking about maybe playing that and trying to stream it after I've looked at it a little bit. I'm not sure yet. I've been streaming a bunch lately this week because I finally got a capture card that works really well and that's really reliable. And I've gotten addicted to it, man. I just can't stop streaming. And like, we're not really a gaming channel. We don't have huge turnouts, but there's always a few people there, and it's really hard. It's really fun, and it's basically just like giving me new zeal for playing video games again right now. It's like if I wasn't playing with an audience, I might not be playing. It's so much more fun with people hanging out with me and talking to me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what keeps this retro game loving. I don't want to go back to what I do, but
no,
this whole
absolutely.
retro game craze. If it wasn't for the community, man, it'd be hard to keep up with it like I do. So that's fun.
Let me mention one more quick thing about the Spider-Man news, and then let's talk gems for a second. We should have done that at the start, but I wanted to leap right into the big news.
No worries.
And I start talking for any amount of time, and I look at my clock, and it's been half an hour, and I don't know how that happens, but it does.
That's all right.
I feel like a regular Aaron Hickman.
Oh, no.
Aaron and I are both talking.
He's a good guy.
He is. So we had him on the show just a couple weeks ago. So
that's right. I watched that one.
I want to mention, and we covered a crazy amount of stuff on that show. I want to mention the Electro and Doc Ock thing again, because what I'm hearing, and again, I don't know how much of anything I'm totally trusting right now. What I'm hearing is that Electro is supposed to be a different version of Electro. But Doc Ock is supposed to be the Spider-Man 2 version of Doc Ock. And everybody else that's coming in, like, the original Tobey Maguire, Mary Jane, Kirsten Dunst, and all of them, and like Gwen Stacy from Amazing Spider-Man is supposed to maybe be there, but they're waiting to see if she can do it because there's a pregnancy question, and so like they're waiting for certain people to sign on right now. What's weird is Tobey Maguire has not signed on yet, but might be signing on. I read that, but Andrew Garfield is definitely back in, and he was. I would have thought that would be the last person they could get because of the relationship he had with Sony, where like he acted like he would never work with them again, and they had him before they had Maguire. It's kind of surprising to me. I don't know. So that whole thing just blows my brain up, dude. That's so confusing. Like, you're gonna go into that movie. Are they just gonna have him give such a different performance that we'll just know he's not that version? Like,
well, yeah, and if they're any type of character in a movie other than a cameo, like how long do you tell a backstory for it, how they got there? Like, that's, if there's that many special appearances, I mean, how many backstories you got to show? That's why I just don't feel like that's gonna be a big part. Like, maybe it's just a Doctor Strange thing, just doing some weird, going here and grabbing this guy, throw him in the port. You know what I mean? Like, maybe just some kind of a weird. I don't know. I just don't know how you could go back and explain all that and not spend 40 minutes of your movie doing backstories of all these cameos.
You say that, but you saw Endgame, right? Like, that was a whole bunch of characters that got more screen time than you might have expected that they could have, and it's MCU involved, obviously, making it. I also think it's too early for this big of an event movie again. This feels like Endgame all over again for Spider-Man. Obviously, We've not seen it yet, so I don't know. But man, I'm gonna be really surprised if you're right about that, because the casting is so early. It's just really weird to tell us about that if he's there for 10 seconds. That will really kind of shock me. No pun intended.
Yeah. I like the pun.
So I don't know. This whole thing is very strange to me. And the other thing to keep in mind is so Electro maybe won't be that Electro, but Doc Ock is dead. So is it going to be what DJ suggested the other day? And more and more I'm starting to think he might have been right about this. I'm not even sure if he was joking, but I think it might be true that we're going to do the Endgame thing and go back to some of those movies and recreate scenes. I'm starting to think that might be what we're doing.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know.
It'll be interesting.
It's crazy. Anthony Cabrera, new Marvel show trailers just got released. It's on their channel. Well, good. Right in the middle of this show, this is going to be obsolete immediately. Wait, it is now. It's obsolete right now, I am sure. We keep getting flagged and blocked and stuff whenever I try to do trailer reactions on this show, so we're not going to do that tonight. I wish we could. That would be great. But sometimes the show, while we're broadcasting live, will get shut down. And I just can't have that, Nick. I can't have it.
Nah, don't blame me. Don't blame me a bit.
Nick is doing a wonderful podcast, my favorite podcast, in fact, and I'm not just saying that. Genesis Gems.
I gotta say, there's a comment here. I agree with.
Absolutely.
Give Bucky the shield. I like that. I agree. I'm a big Bucky fan.
I disagree wholeheartedly, because Falcon is the best thing ever, and they can share it if they want to share it. That's fine, but no, it's gotta be. I was so excited that Falcon kind of got that.
Got the shield, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I've wanted him to have his own movie since Winter Soldier. I fell in love with him in Winter Soldier. I just lost it. And then he got to be in like the next 3 consecutive movies, and I was like, yes.
That's cool.
So Nick and Aaron Hickman do a really fun, kind of all over the place podcast about Sega Genesis games.
That's true, all over the place.
They are talking about as many Genesis games as they can until they decide to stop the podcast, which will never happen. So probably when they die, when they finally die, there won't be any more. And hopefully they get them all knocked out by then. But
we'll pass them on to the next generation of like our kids.
Genesis Gems is on Spotify and Anchor and iTunes and most places that you can listen to a podcast. And Nick, why don't you talk a little bit more about the show and what's been happening lately with it? And I don't know if you have any idea what the next episode is. We just recorded one recently, but go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been doing the show, for probably 6 or 7 years now. A few different co-hosts in and out, but I've been there since the beginning. Aaron's been there pretty much from close to the beginning. But yeah, we cover game by game. Each episode is dedicated to a Sega Genesis game. We do a little fun chat in the beginning where we have a couple segments that are just kind of for fun. What games we've been playing, and then we jump into the game and we usually rate it, what we call a gem, good or garbage. And we take listener feedback, which is good. But yeah, we just covered. With you, Batman, the Sunsoft version, Batman 1 on the Genesis, and we're getting ready to cover Alicia Dragoon, which is a really it's a good game. It's on the new Sega Genesis Mini, but it's something that a lot of people haven't really heard too much about. When you think about Genesis, you think Sonic, your Golden Axe, your Streets of Rage, and this is one of those ones that I think a lot of people will be surprised about how good it is. So I think it's gonna be a fun one. But yeah, we've been doing it for quite a while. GenesisGemsPodcast.com is our website, and we're part of a network actually with a couple guys who do a Nintendo NES podcast, game by game. It's called Bit Brothers. So we're part of this little. We call it a network of retro gaming. So we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/bitbros, where we all get together, all 4 of us, and talk about games. And then we have our separate shows. One about Sega Genesis, one about the NES. So yeah, it's a real cool network, real good community that was kind of birthed out of another retro community that's now kind of sadly deceased, called the Retro Junkies. But we've kind of kept that community going. A real fun Facebook group where we just kind of chat and have fun with people, and it's good. It's really lighthearted, family friendly. We don't you can listen to it around your kids. We don't cuss or say anything bad. So it's kind of nice to have that in your car with kids, and a lot of it's just really fun with me because I'll get my kids involved. I I collect old games, so I get the Sega Genesis out, the original one, hook it up, and have my kids play it with me, and I kind of get their reaction on it, and I'll take notes and talk about it at the show. This is what my oldest son thought about it. Because so you kind of get that nostalgia, but then you also get the next generation's idea of the game. So my kids like to say that those graphics are trash or whatever, but as we're playing it, I try to teach them a little bit of the history of where these games came from, and it's kind of fun. So that's what we do. Again, you can find us, like Kat mentioned, on Spotify, on Anchor, Genesis Gems. It should be able to find it just by typing that in. So yeah, appreciate the call out there.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I still have listened to it. I've guested on it a couple times now, and it's still my favorite thing to listen to. You guys are great.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and we made it a rule that anytime we cover anything comic book related, you're just coming on the show. I don't know if you know that you don't really have a choice anymore. So.
Okay, I pull my leg. I guess I could do it. Yeah, we covered the Genesis Batman game recently. That was a lot of fun. That was a game that I didn't even grow up with because it was nowhere. I never saw that, and it was weird how late of a release that was. It was based on the '89 movie, but it doesn't come out until like '91.
Yeah, and I felt like it was rushed. I think we talked about that a little bit, and just how it just didn't feel as good as the NES version. But yeah, go check that show out for our full review.
So somebody in the comments here just mentioned something that I had not heard about, and well, let me amend that. I heard this last week, but I thought someone was joking, and maybe it was a joke. Is this true? Rainbow Nightmare. Loki looks nuts. Did you hear Pixar in 2022 is making a film called Lightyear starring Chris Evans as Buzz? There was a joke recently on the show where it was like, you know what they're going to do? They're going to make a show called Lightyear, and it's going to be like the origin story of Buzz Lightyear. Is that really happening?
That's news to me. I've never heard that.
But nothing surprises me. Like, you're not surprised by that, right? Like, of course they're doing that.
Yeah.
You can't even joke anymore.
Keeping Chris.
2020 is the year around. Where there's no making fun of anything.
That's right.
As soon as you try to satirize something, it comes true. That's what I'm finding. I also find that because we remake, as much as we remake and reboot stuff, if I bring up a movie I haven't thought about in 10 years, the next day there will be an announcement of its decades later sequel. Happens every time. Speaking of that, Bag Studios, 199 Super Chat. Thanks, buddy. Scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for Hocus Pocus 2? Of course that's happening. The answer is 0, because I hate that movie with a burning passion.
Oh, why's that?
Because it's terrible. It's unwatchable. It's really bad production values. Look, the whole thing was made in somebody's garage.
My wife and kids love that movie. I'm not a fan, but
I know it's beloved, and nothing against anybody, but I'm gonna call it like I see it. I've never liked that movie.
Yeah,
I feel the same way I do about that Schwarzenegger Christmas movie with Turbo Man. That whole thing.
No, Jingle All the Way.
Jingle
I like
Away.
that one.
God, I hate that.
I'll give him that one. That one I enjoy.
It is true, Cap, says Rohit Har. Of course it is. Okay, so I was looking on YouTube. There's a bunch of these trailers. Somebody was like, hey, you don't even have to broadcast the footage. You could just watch them. We could maybe do the sync up thing like we do with commentaries. If somebody knows of a place where they're all in, like all together, I might consider doing that. But there's like 8 of them, and they're all like 50 seconds to a minute and a half long. I don't want to sync that over and over again. So if somebody could send me a link where somebody has posted all of it together, we'll do that. Otherwise, we're just going to have to talk about it on the next Captain Logan show, I think. Which sucks because we're not going to have another one until next Thursday, because next Tuesday is Marvel Mania. We're doing Ant-Man and the Wasp. So this is all going to be a week old by the time. Maybe I'll do an extra thing on it. I may have to do that. I may just come back and broadcast sometime over the weekend and do a trailer recap thing. Okay, guys, if you want to start throwing questions out and you haven't done that yet, feel free. I'll scroll back up and see how much that I can see. Like I said, it'll be easier to grab super chats if anybody wants to leave super chats. Tonight, the top super chatter gets to pick the next superhero game that I stream. I am not promising streaming all of it. Whatever it happens to be, if I really like it or I'm half decent at it, I may play through most of it or all of it. But I am just now finally, after a year, this won't take a year, I promise. I will start broadcasting soon, but I'm not promising all of it. I'll do at least a couple hours on it. whatever it is. I am finishing up Telltale Batman 2, and after the show tonight, I'm going to go ahead and stream the rest of that, because I was in the middle of it this afternoon. I had to quit. I'm going to come back and finish it. I probably have 45 minutes at most left in that game, I think, so I'm going to go ahead and knock it out, because I'm kind of excited to see the end of it. I have played through that game before. I'm playing an ending I've not seen before, so it's all new stuff that I haven't got to look at, so I'm really excited to finish it, because I think I like it better than the other ending I got before, so that will be fun to finish. Have you ever played any of the Telltale games, Nick?
Yeah, I think The Wolf Among Us was my favorite. That actually got me into the comic book, or to the
cool.
comic book series. Yeah, because I didn't even know. I played through that game like, this is awesome. And then I went and Googled it. I was like, oh, it's based on a comic book. Had no clue. So I ended up buying some of those graphic novels. And
I can't believe I don't know this. Who published that? That's not an Image book, is it?
I don't know. I can't remember. I bought this stupid thing. I bought this stupid thing, and I can't remember.
Somebody will tell us, I'm sure. We need to
I'm
go
not gonna
through.
act like I know.
We need to go through the Star Wars announcements. Like I said, there's just a stupid. That's why this is the Stop Announcing Things show. We've had a running gag lately on the show, Nick, where I keep accidentally announcing things on the show that I either wasn't even sure I was doing yet, or wasn't planning on talking about yet, but it just kind of comes out. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm announcing this. And so the running gag lately has been Cap, stop announcing things. And now I'm saying that to freaking Disney. Stop announcing things.
Stop announcing.
So much Star Wars. Not surprising to me that they're putting out a ridiculous amount of Disney Plus shows after the popularity of The Mandalorian. Not surprising that they're putting so many of their eggs in that basket, given that their sequel movies were ultimately, especially in rapid succession, not real popular and weren't rated well, and most importantly, did not sell merchandise well. But the Netflix show has been doing gangbusters. Everybody's watching that. It's the only TV show I'm really keeping up with, and I think it's excellent. I'm really happy with it, and that's why I played Mandalorian lead-in music tonight, because I found a really good metal cover of that. And anyway, so of course they're announcing a bunch of shows. But Nick, do they have to drop all of the announcements at once?
And I don't play on Facebook as much as I used to. So when I got on this afternoon after work, I was kind of blown away, because the first thing I saw was the Ahsoka announcement, which was awesome. I thought Rosario Dawson did great on that show the other night. And I told my wife, I said, I bet they make a show out of that. And maybe they already announced it, and I'm really late to the game, but I felt like I kind of figured that was going to happen. But then I started seeing announcements for some of these animated series, and I think there was one that's going to follow in the same timeline as Mandalorian, something about what was that one, like something Ranger or something, I can't remember, but it was just
I don't think that one's animated, though. I think that's
that's a live action
show. Yeah, they're doing an animated short film collection called Star Wars Visions, which is going to be like an anime thing that's vignette films. I don't know why my box is so much bigger than yours. That makes me look really narcissistic. Let me drop this down a little bit. So anyway, this is from dorksideoftheforce.com. This is the list of all of the, in bite-sized morsels, the Star Wars shows coming to Disney Plus, so we can just take a look at these real quick. I'm with you. The Ahsoka spinoff series is not altogether surprising. I guess it hadn't occurred to me that they would give her her own show, but it's no surprise that that's happening. More surprising to me, and she was awesome in that, and obviously I hope we've got great stories for it to go with, but I mean, her first time on screen as that character, and she gets maybe 15-20 minutes of screen time in that episode, and she just nails it, and I like that character with her more than I ever have, because I've never cared about her, really. I always thought the idea of Anakin Skywalker having his own Padawan was ridiculous and obvious, and of course we're doing that on in a cartoon show. And people say that she gets great, and I just never cared about Clone Wars and have had a hard time getting into that. I've tried over and over again. People will send me the list of all the important episodes to watch. I've never been able to get into it. I keep trying. I will probably try again. I will get 50 more comments after this tonight. No, really, Cap, this is the one you have to look. I watched that first like Darth Maul 2 or 3 parter. People said that will be the thing that hooks you. I mean, it was fine. I don't know. Like,
there's some good summary videos out there. You can look on YouTube and get the stories you need. That's what I did.
Well, and the thing is, I want to say, it always felt to me like a generation gap. But I mean, I have met people my age that really like it, certainly. Yeah. And even when I had Melinda Snodgrass on a couple weeks ago, she couldn't stop talking about Clone Wars. And I'm like, She's quite a bit older than me and loves that show. I thought it was an age gap thing. Apparently not. I don't know. So
I watched the first season, like every episode, and after that, I just kind of hit and missed a few because I couldn't. I don't know. I lost interest. I feel like I moved on to other things.
So yes, all we really have is announcements and initial concepts for these. And I think they all on Facebook they all had logos. So you're not gonna see all the logos necessarily. Ahsoka's getting a show. Rangers of the New Republic.
That's the one.
I want to be excited about, and I'll tell you why. Because we didn't do hardly anything in the sequel trilogy about what the New Republic even looked like before we blew a lot of it up. And I have no idea what the thing that is trying to replace the Empire even looks like. I think there's potentially really compelling stories you can do with an aftermath thing after Return of the Jedi, where you're trying to rebuild democracy after an empire. How does that come together? How do you do that? I think that could be great. And I also like the idea of doing some things connected to Mandalorian that are not just more bounty hunter stuff, because I was a little bit worried after the big rumor that we were going to get a Boba Fett spinoff right away, that it's like, okay, is everything going to be about bounty hunters? Let's do some other stuff. I was really curious to not see Boba Fett's name on this list. And is that because it's more or less been announced, or has it not been announced and that's all rumor territory? And you have a lot of websites just acting like it's confirmed. I guess I don't know if that series is happening.
Yeah, and as I scrolled through their Facebook page, I just assumed it was going to be there too, because I mean, it's guilty as it sounds of being a cliche Star Wars fan. There's nothing gets me more excited than seeing Boba Fett on the TV screen again, even if it's a little weird how all that transpired. But
well, I get that. I mean, after that episode, all I got was Dan Torrey just blowing up my phone like, "Cap, did you see the Mandalorian? Oh my God, I won't tell you what was in it, but you have to watch it." And I'm not a Boba Fett fan. He's freaking awesome. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, as soon as I saw that, I was like, no, yes, give him his own show. Absolutely.
I kept telling my wife, I said, there's no way he died that way. There's no way he died that way. And I kept saying it over and over again. And then when the episode where he kind of, stand up here on that hill, I'm like, oh, it's Boba Fett. She's like, no, it's not. Like, yes, it is. Like, I just, the whole time we were watching those, I'm like, Boba Fett. That's all I could talk about.
I had a similar thing with my wife. I was like, that's Boba Fett, right? And she's like, really? I'm like, well, let's see. We just did a whole episode about the armor, and he's an older guy, and he's on a hill. Oh, and also I read news, and I know Boba Fett's going to be in the show this season, and you don't know that. But regardless of that, obviously that's Boba Fett. And then it was, and he's amazing. And obviously it was really exciting when he got his armor back and all that. But I could see that guy definitely holding his own in his own show. I think it would be a very different show than Mandalorian, even though they are both technically bounty hunters. He will not continue to be a bounty hunter, right? He'll go his own way and do a totally different thing. So at this point, I'm saying yes, absolutely, give him his own show. I think that could be just wonderful.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I'm just gonna love it either way, even if it's I don't know, it's maybe I'm too dedicated to loving Boba Fett, but even if it's bad, I'm gonna love it. It's one of those things.
So I am really curious about, before we look at the rest of this, because I like to make everything take as long as humanly possible. I am really curious, Nick. I'm glad you said the word timeline. I'm really curious about that wording in these announcements. In the timeline of Mandalorian, there's been a lot of rumors lately, and I've been thinking that it's got to be more than rumor, that Mandalorian goes its own way, and that we are going to have branching off timelines in Star Wars. That because it would be nuts for Disney to spend the kind of money they did on that sequel trilogy and then immediately decanonicize it because of the lack of popularity for that. One of the big rumors has been they're going to just straight up retcon it, and I've had a hard time buying that they will straight up retcon it. It sounds like Mandalorian might not be in that same universe, that up to a certain point, it's like Star Trek 09, up to a certain point everything more or less counts, and then it diverges. And Trek 09 did that really poorly in a lot of ways, especially once you got to Darkness, but that's the closest thing to this that I can think of right off the top of my head. And then with Star Wars, it would be you get up to Empire, and that's when it diverges. You can't tell me that they are building toward the First Order in that show. I don't think that's what's happening.
Yeah, I don't know. I've already watched Star Wars do that with the new Jedi Order books. I was real big into those,
Yeah,
and
sure.
yeah, they completely threw the whole timeline out the window, or the whole series out the window. So
Well, they threw the whole
I hope
EU
they wouldn't do
out
that.
the window, of course. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but clearly
yeah,
the Mandalorian is really interested in old EU and is wanting to adapt some of it. And I don't want to give any spoilers away for people that haven't watched that show yet. Obviously, we're talking about Boba Fett. We knew that was coming. If you've been looking at news, I don't want to spill the beans on anything else. But there are things that they have brought up that are very EU connected that sound like they could be just straight up adaptation of EU stuff.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, you can't do that and it be in the same timeline as 7, 8, 9. I mean, it's just not possible. So it has to go its own way. So it's interesting that they're already talking about it that way. Now, is it possible that they're not using that term the way a lot of fans use that term? I suppose. When they say timeline, they could just mean it happens in the same time period as Mandalorian. Like it is connected to that show in some way. I hope this isn't wishful thinking. I'm hoping when they say timeline, they mean timeline, as in bridging timelines. And if they do that, Nick, that will become the one people care about.
Yeah, 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 and there's people who don't even like Star Wars that are loving the Mandalorian. So it's good. I think Disney's picking up on that. I've got people I work with that talk about it all the time, but they haven't seen a single Star Wars movie. So it's kind of interesting how that's
interesting
showing up. Yeah, very interesting. So and they said that they would watch anything that comes up in that in that whole universe because they just love the way it's the storytelling. And the storytelling is great because I there's a lot of unknowns. You don't know like some of the backgrounds, and I always think storytelling is better that way when you're kind of thrown right into the middle of a situation that you don't know the background, and it keeps as time goes on you find more. The child, you kind of learn what his real name is and all this other stuff. So I don't know, it's just kind of fun to see all that kind of unravel like that.
I think that's cool in that show because of POV, because we get almost everything from the Mandalorian's perspective. So it's not teasing us. It's not like you could have had this information, but honestly, we didn't even know what it was yet. So we've now made it up. So we've decided to tell you. No, we're getting it as our protagonist is getting it. And that's why that ends up being so compelling. I think. Let's look at the rest of this list, shall we? So this is weird. We knew there was supposed to be an Obi-Wan Kenobi series coming. It was supposed to be earlier than it has ended up being. They're letting us know that's definitely still happening. And there's been rumor for a long time that Hayden Christensen would come back. That is now confirmed, and he'll be coming back as Darth Vader. Darth Vader. Weird. Okay, because the first thing Nick said when we were talking about this before the show was, well, maybe they'll just do flashbacks. And I bet they will do some flashbacks. But why does it matter if he's in the suit?
I know.
Why does it make any difference who's in the suit?
I mean, it's not his voice, right? They're not going to use Hayden Christensen's voice as Darth Vader. It'd be more exciting if they just said James Earl Jones. Yeah,
I mean, maybe it would be so dumb if it was like Hayden Christensen's going to record his voice into a voice synthesizer that sounds like Darth Vader.
Oh, that would be rough.
Really? Is that what they're going to do? What is the point of that? So how many token moments just so that he can get FaceTime are we going to have where he's in the big egg thing and the helmet comes off and we see Hayden Christensen's face?
That's true. Maybe that's their plan. They're just going to have a lot of that. That's a good point.
I want to be excited about that show. It's going to be, and I've said this from the beginning, it's going to be very difficult not to make it really, convoluted and forced that Obi-Wan Kenobi goes on a bunch of adventures after he moves to Tatooine, and especially that he would meet Darth Vader again. But they can potentially win me over on that. You can make anything work. You just got to make it work, and I hope they do.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like Ewan McGregor. I think he was one of the few bright spots on the prequels. So I was very excited when I heard about. I think I heard about it last year when they were talking about this. So it's interesting. There's a whole. I mean, the possibilities are endless from the time that he went to Tatooine as a nomad and had his little adventures. So I think there's a lot of just open books there. They can write some good sweet stories. But yeah, the whole. I don't. As much as people really didn't like Hayden Christensen, I'm really surprised they made that like a big headline announcement. I'm like, really? You haven't been on the internet and read about this guy?
Yeah, because I mean, sure, people were excited about Ewan McGregor, but that's because that was always good casting, and he didn't get anything to do.
Yeah.
So like, people are excited about that again, not because they want to see him reprise that role, but because in my estimation, they want to see him play it in the first place. So then we've still got this Andor thing that we've heard about for a long time that I've been scratching my head about ever since it was announced. They're going to have to win everybody over on this. There were a lot of people that did like Rogue One. No one remembers the characters in Rogue One. And doing a spinoff where we're going to get a prequel show for this guy, I mean, maybe it'll be great, and maybe people will end up loving it, but I don't know that anybody's stoked for that on initial concept, right?
Yeah, I won't lie. I had to Google that. I'm like, oh, okay.
See?
and I consider myself a decent Star Wars fan, and I thought, oh yeah, okay. So yeah, you're right.
So, what does it mean when we say event series versus just series? Are we saying
I don't know.
that? Are we saying that everything that doesn't say event series we're expecting to get multiple seasons? Because if that's not the case, more things should be pitched initially as an event series. This is the mistake that Marvel made on Netflix, where everything had to have multiple series, and I think more of those things should have been miniseries in the first place. If they do really well and you have more stories to tell, do the BBC model and bring it back in a year and a half and do another event series. Jessica Jones should not have had a second season right away. It was dreadful, and I'm a little bit concerned about that with this. Now, obviously, Mandalorian has gotten better and better as it goes along, so
yeah.
For, at least in a lot of people's opinions, including my own. So it's great with that, but with something like Daredevil, you expected probably more seasons of that show, but then we just everything they made, they had to make another season of.
Yeah.
And so I think they should all be miniseries in the first place.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So apparently this Lando show is going to be an event series. They're going, no more seasons for Lando, just the one, I guess. And we don't even know if Donald Glover's coming back. He may or may not be playing that part again.
Yeah, the whole Han Solo movie, I literally watched one time, and I never watched it again. And I've watched about every Star Wars movie at least 20 or 30 times. I don't know. There's something about that wasn't very appealing to me. I do have to ask.
That could be fun, I guess. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have to ask. I don't know if this is on your on the website about the show, but there was a Willow announcement as well on the Star Wars page. Did you see that?
Yeah, just right in the sandwich right in the middle of that, because it's also a Lucasfilm thing. So yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Is it?
We'll see. I don't know.
Okay. I hope that's exciting. I don't know.
Sometimes I'm just trained to say that. That's exciting. We'll see.
Well, that's okay. That's not a thing I have any nostalgia for whatsoever. So like, I don't care. But if it's
kind of like I told you about the Venom movie. I watched it because I love Venom, and it was cool to see Venom.
Well, I gotta tell you, and I don't mean to ever bust anybody's bubble. If you're excited for things that I'm not excited for, more power to you. I'm glad you can get ecstatic like that. I'm still a little bit burnt out on pop culture overload. I really am. And 2020 has been a dreadful year in a lot of different ways. I kind of needed the lack of movie theaters for a while. I kind of needed everything to just stop. I was so inundated with stuff. And when I see this, it's like PTSD, man. I'm just like, really? This is the million D+ things that I have to sit down and review now. And like, like Cry Me a River Cap, like you review shows, you review fiction, like that's what you do. That's what you do for a living. It's been nice having a breather and being able to go back and look at older stuff and spend more time with things and stuff. It's just like inundated with MCU movies for a decade, and 22, 23 movies. And so when I see articles saying like people are having not Marvel fatigue now, but like missing it, withdrawal symptoms. I'm like, I could take 2 or 3 more years off from that, man. Like, you used to get that much time off between franchises. I think of this as a franchise. Like, I don't think of the Marvel movies as much as a bunch of different movies as I think of them as a movie franchise that comes out 3 or 4 times a year. I was ready for a little time off, and I don't think I'm ready to get pelted in the face 1,000 times with it again.
And I think when you have that much coming at you, like going and seeing your favorite character on screen doesn't seem as big as an event as it did them. And maybe it's just me being an adult now, not a kid anymore. But
that's because we're old.
Yeah,
but it was a big deal when we were a kid. Yeah, when anything that you've ever heard of came to the big screen.
Exactly. Like when the first Spider-Man came out, I think I was just in high school or college, and that was like the greatest thing in the world. I'm like, I'm gonna see Spider-Man on the big screen, and now it's just like, another Marvel movie.
So beyond that, apparently there's a Droid Story short with R2-D2 and C-3PO, and then Patty Jenkins is making Rogue Squadron. I want to be excited about that. That's potentially cool. I think she's a fantastic director, and I like the aesthetic of Rogue Squadron. So.
Yeah, I won't lie. When I saw Rogue Squadron, I was immediately hoping for another video game, but that's not what that was talking about.
Yes,
like, ooh, another video game.
But maybe they'll do a tie-in. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess that I forgot what it was called, but I guess that ship game they just did recently is sort of like the spiritual successor to Rogue Squadron, though, is it not?
Yeah, I haven't tried that yet. So, was that online based? Because I if you all can't tell on my video, I don't have the best internet where I'm at, so I can't do a lot of online based.
You know what though? We haven't had any connection problems, so that's good.
Oh,
and,
good.
And I think even your frame rate's gotten a lot better. So.
Oh, good.
You were dropping frames a lot when we first started, or maybe I've adjusted.
What?
Maybe my eyes have adjusted.
I think my kids stopped playing Fortnite. That's probably what happened.
No, I hear you though, man. Yeah, obviously I'm not a big online player either. I've been streaming a lot lately, but I don't like playing online with people that much. I have the same thing that you do with that. Again, we're old people. But that has a campaign, I know, but I don't know how long it is, and I know people are mostly playing it to play online, of course.
Yeah.
Taika Waititi is developing a movie. I think we knew that already. I want to say. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What you're saying?
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. No problem.
And then a mystery thriller called The Acolyte. This I missed. From Leslie Headland comes a new Star Wars series, The Acolyte. In this new mystery thriller, viewers will be transported into a galaxy of shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers in the final days of... Oh, High Republic. Okay. We knew they were going to do something with High Republic. I feel like we'd heard that recently.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because a lot of people weren't excited about that. They wanted to go farther back than that. They wanted to go Old Republic, so yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wasn't sure if you were into the whole Old Republic scene. I love that video game from BioWare back in the early 2000s.
I started it on an iPad at one point and then decided that wasn't the way to play it. And I haven't. It's cool that they have that on devices, though. That blew my mind.
Yeah. It's still like I went to the App Store the other day. It's still one of the like top paid games you can buy.
That is Dan Torrey's favorite video game of all time, and he's been telling me forever. You don't know Dan, but Dan goes way back with us here on the channel. He's been I don't know if you've seen him in things, but he's been a recurring contributor for a long time, and we've met each other a few times in person and stuff. But he's my Star Wars guy on the channel. All the commentaries I've done on Star Wars are with Dan, and Dan's the reason I know anything about Star Wars now. I can almost talk intelligently about Star Wars now. Thanks to Dan, because I'm not a Wars guy. I've always been more of a Star Trek guy, but I know more of it now. I've kind of had to. At this point,
he's definitely right. That game is fantastic. It's a great game, but the story is so good in that game. Like it was good for them to kind of start a new, just like let's just get way out. Let's go way back and just to tell a new story. And it was super good. Like even if you just want to get a good story, it'd probably be good to go watch it on YouTube or something if you don't want to play through it all. That was a fantastic game.
I need to finally do that. Yeah, a lot of people say it's one of the best Star Wars stories. Like right up there with Thrawn is what I hear people say.
Yep.
So
I never did play the second one, which is probably a bad thing.
I don't know if that
I heard it wasn't as good, but yeah, the first one I beat like 6 times.
So Nick, we are right at an hour. Are you good to go for another hour? Can you stick around?
Yeah, I can go for a little bit longer. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let me know if you need to get going. The super chats have poured in now, and I want to read a few comments about what we were just talking about because I couldn't look at the comments while I was screen sharing. Because 3 monitors is still not enough monitors. Okay. Mutale, how do you feel about the Alien series by Noah Hawley? Is that okay? Is that an announced thing, or are we talking about the more recent Alien things that because that's not Prometheus, right? That's yeah. I guess I don't know. I don't follow Alien enough to remember who has made what stuff.
Yeah.
I have to look up things.
I think I've watched one Alien movie. Don't kill me.
I apologize.
Alien.
Solar Dragon, what does Eric think of these new announcements? Well, he's not here, and they just happened, so I don't know yet. He hasn't sent me any messages about it, so I'm not sure. Somebody said that the High Republic is Disney's Old Republic, so apparently it's the same thing.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that, so that's good.
Okay. People are bringing up a bunch of things that we knew about already, but apparently are kind of coming back into Announcementville because of today. So there's going to be a lot more stuff to talk about next week, I'm sure. But I'll stop. Look it up. They announced a new series of Alien. Okay. I didn't know about that. I will look that up. Tom, $3 super chat. Sorry I'm late. Hard day at work. No problem, Tom. Not watching the Game Awards tonight. Any game you want to win? No, I didn't even know about that until I got on YouTube earlier, and some channel that I'm subscribed to was going to stream that. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know there was a Game Awards. So okay.
Oh yeah.
Is that a thing anybody pays any attention to?
I'll watch it. I mean,
Okay.
I usually watch a recap. I don't, watch the whole stream, but yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't gonna cancel my live show for the Game Awards,
Yeah.
Tom. So yeah.
Gotcha.
So I guess I'm not, but I'll look at the highlights later. I didn't play enough stuff last year to have really a dog in that fight. You probably do.
Well, I'm looking at the list of the nominees for Game of the Year, and I've only played one of them.
Really?
And that
Which
was
one
Animal
did you
Crossing.
play?
It was Animal Crossing.
That
Yeah.
game was huge. So do they
It was-
do they make the list of Game of the Year based on sales?
I think so, in popularity. So like, I'll read them real quick. It's Animal Crossing: New Horizons, Doom Eternal, the Final Fantasy VII remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, and The Last of Us Part 2. Which Ghost of Tsushima, I can't even say that word. Sorry. It's made by Sucker Punch. I've been wanting to play that forever since it came out, but I haven't got around to it yet.
I have to. I've been thinking about trying to get that to stream it because I
Yeah,
can't stop
yeah.
streaming. It's becoming an addiction.
It looks great, and if you like the Infamous games on the PlayStation, it's the same company that made those, so it's I'm sure it's awesome. Cool.
Man, it's just so nuts. Like I said earlier, that this was the show that DJ wasn't able to make it to because, like, a lot of the comments are, "Did you hear about this thing?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't know that." And some of it doesn't even have anything to do with Disney. It's so weird. So apparently, and I have not been keeping up with the CW shows at all because every time I try to touch back in, I just want to stab myself in the face with an ice pick. Like, they're just awful, and I haven't seen anything I actually really liked in a long time. That last season of Flash, what I saw of it was better than it had been in a long time, and then Crisis happened, and then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm okay. I think I'm okay. But apparently Tyler Hoechlin Superman has a new suit. I had not seen that. Somebody just sent me a message about that. So let's take a look at it. It looks fine. I mean, it looks pretty similar to his last suit. I still wish they'd give him the trunks. I don't understand why we're still not doing that. This is still kind of, at this point, it's like throwback to New 52, right? It's like, let's pretend like that's still in vogue and current. Nah, Superman's had trunks again in the comics for 3 or 4 years. It's kind of strange that we're doing that. It doesn't look that different from what he had before. I think I like the Shield better. But yeah, I have liked his portrayal for the most part, what I've seen of it, and it's cool he's getting his own show, but I don't like his Lois. And her name's in the title, so that makes it, less exciting for me. I'm not gonna say that I won't give that a try, even though I feel like on principle I shouldn't give anything CW a try anymore. Just because in Supergirl, one of the only things I thought they really got right after that first couple seasons was when Superman was there, he was Superman, and during a period where DCEU does not understand that character. They might.
Did you like that show? I watched the first season and I kind of lost interest, or maybe I just forgot about it. But it was okay.
Things about it.
Okay.
It was real pandery, and it got worse and worse about that as it went along.
And is that the one? That was the one where she was like chatting with Superman or with Clark, right? Like chatting with him like on the internet or something.
Yeah, because at first they weren't going to cast him, and then later they actually finally cast him. And when they did, he was great.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. I may have to go back and watch it.
Yeah, that's that guy from Teen Wolf. William Parcell, The Arrowverse Dead. I feel like 9 people have to be still watching that. I don't talk to anybody that's still paying attention to those shows. Everybody I talk to, I was watching that for a while when Flash was really popular for its first couple seasons, and then it kind of fell off and I didn't care anymore. A lot of people left after Arrow season 3 because it was insulting and awful, and I kept reviewing everything for a long time, and then I asked for brain cells for Christmas, and at the point where that's what I had to ask for Christmas, I decided to stop watching.
Oh, well. Yeah, I started with Arrow, and I liked it, and whenever Flash came on some of those crossover episodes, I'm like, I really like the actor, and so Flash was the only one I kept watching, because we tried watching a lot of the other ones, and that was the only one I could keep up with, so I'm about a season behind, but I did enjoy the Flash.
Adam A., all the announcements reminded me of the unfortunate fact that Disney owns way too much. Agreed. Mutale, Cap, are you looking forward to the Baymax show? I had heard about that recently, and I just finally started watching the Big Hero 6 show, because I just reviewed that movie finally on Rewind, and liked the pilot okay, and might watch more of it, but yeah, so I don't know. I don't really understand how that works as its own show, but I guess we'll see what that's like. Let's get into some Super Chats, because there's a bunch of them. Rohit Thahar, $5 Super Chat, thanks very much. How do you feel about Marvel Studios having John Watts be the director of the first Fantastic Four film in light of Homecoming and Far From Home? I had not heard of that. Or I had not heard that was happening. Is that true? Does not sound like a bad choice to me. I like those movies. I like his style. I think him doing stuff with a family dynamic makes a lot of sense. That makes me think that they're gonna go more family dynamic than we might have thought they might go. So yeah, I'm for that. At first glance, yeah, sure. Tom, another $10 Super Chat. Thanks so much. Donuts. Why are you talking about? Wait a minute. Why are we doing this? Why are we talking about Who Wants to Be a Superhero? Okay, so there was I don't know if you know this, there was a superhero, there was a show that Stan Lee hosted in the mid-2000s called Who Wants to Be a Superhero, and it was a reality show where people had to be in a contest to be superheroes, and I actually did a review of it on Rewind, because I was really into that show when it was on, and in some ways it's terrible, but it was really funny, and I kind of enjoyed watching it. We're talking about this now. Donuts give Fat Mama her powers. If you ate, I had to explain what that was. Fat Mama was the runner-up winner in the first season of that show. If you ate Power Donuts, what power would you get, and what flavor would they be? You rock. Thoughts on Facebook being sued by the FTC, and will they win? DJ, we miss you. Okay, so wait, you're saying nice things in between unrelated questions? Okay, thanks, Tom. I appreciate you, buddy. What's your favorite kind of donut, and what sort of power would it give you, Nick?
I like the chocolate cake donuts, and I'd have to go invisible. I've always wanted to be invisible.
Oh, yeah? You sound like an introvert.
I kind of am. Even though I podcast and stuff, I could, this whole quarantine thing, it's kind of suited for me. Sit in my room and work from home.
I'm kind of a chocolate Long John guy. And I don't know, if I had powers, it would be the ability to increase the length of my day by at least 24 more hours. Just my day.
A lot to do, little time.
Yeah, it would be relative time powers.
Oh yes, yeah. I take the yeah. I've always wanted the freeze time. That's what I should have said. I'm probably too late now. I can't go back. Freezing time. That's good. But yeah, but I can do whatever I want to in that time. Just take a big nap.
I had not heard about Facebook being sued by the FTC. I have to look into that, so I'm not going to comment on that right now. Nick, do you know anything about that?
Nope.
Okay, I'm glad you asked two questions with your $10 Super Chat. Thanks very much. John Ty, $5 Super Chat. Pardon me. Nick, you've not been on the show. You'll learn about the kinds of questions that John likes to ask. With the rise of tribalism online, it's always heavy, and I've always got to unpack it. With the rise of tribalism online, is it fun to be in a fandom anymore? The answer to that is complicated. In my mind, it can be sometimes a lot less fun if you are too into social media. I think you gotta find the right networks of people. Because you're right, tribalism is a real big problem. The way, and Nick, I don't want to put your words in your mouth, but I feel like the way you and I have best handled this is to create our own communities. Yes,
yeah, amen, yep. That's exactly right. And I've become like good friends with some of these people in the communities, and that's where, and it's almost like a mutual understanding in our groups that we talk positive, we just talk what our likes are. There's no politics, there's no religion. It's just let's talk nerdy stuff and just have fun and be happy. That's the community I want.
And importantly, talking positive doesn't mean that you can't be critical of things, of course.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
it's let's not make things personal. You and I can disagree on things, and we don't have to deconstruct each other and be like, well, if only you had the correct way of looking at the world, you'd like this thing. We can't make everything about that. It's a problem. It's kind of tearing us apart as a society. And these kinds of communities where people understand that and they're willing to be challenged in respectful ways and have thoughtful and again challenging conversations about the things that they like and just geek out together is kind of the last vestige of what fandom used to be like for me. And I don't mean to sound horribly dire. I find nice people in fandom all the time. But it's harder on the internet because the anonymity makes it easier to be horrible, and it also makes it easier to fall into echo chambers and get really paranoid about things and decide that if somebody likes this movie I don't like, they must be worshiping the devil or something. It's really strange and unfortunate what's happened with social media. I think it's before the pandemic, and I don't think the pandemic is helping us with social media. Before the pandemic, I would have said it's really important to get out of your house. Go find some people to play games with. Do a little couch co-op. Don't make it all about over the internet. Bring a board game. Watch a film. Go to a restaurant, and I think it's really important to live in the real world as best as humanly possible, because in certain ways the internet is the real world, and in very important ways it is not at all.
Yeah, and I'm with you, because it's like I have to watch myself spending time on social media, because I don't respond to things I see, but I'll start seeing things I don't agree with, and I'll start typing, and then I'm like, no, delete. It's just then I start feeling bad. I'm like, why am I wasting my time? I could be doing something so much more fun than this.
That's a great point. I heard you say that the other day on something where you're like, I'm looking at my phone and like it says I looked at it for 5 hours.
I'm like, what is wrong with me? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It adds up, right? And you're like, where did my day go? And you'll think you have downtime that you don't have.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I don't have time for that, but I can sit on my phone for 4 hours a day. Yep.
I'm also going to sound like a really prudish writer person when I say this, but if everybody walked around with a paperback and spent that kind of time looking at that instead of reading a phone, the world would be looking at their phone. The world's a better place.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Okay, I'm done with my soapbox now. Mr. Roboto, $2 super chat. I don't totally know what he's getting at with this. How about a Star Wars Galaxy Variety Hour instead? I'm assuming that's a reference to something.
So one of the games or something? Wasn't there a Star Wars Galaxy game? Or maybe it just means the world. I don't know.
Variety Hour. I mean, that sounds like a 70s concert series. Like, I don't...
Variety Hour.
Sorry, Mr. Roboto, I'm not sure what you're getting at with that. Lewis Cox, 10-pound super chat. Thanks, man. Hey, Cap, how are you today? I'm doing pretty good, man. I've had an okay day. Getting to hang out with my buddy Nick here, who, by the way, has been a spectacular co-host. Thanks a bunch for being here, Nick.
Thanks. A little nervous with all these people watching live. I've never done live before, so this is fun.
You get used to it. It's easy to get a little bit nervous in the first place, but it's so much fun. Yeah. I get addicted to it. I love doing live shows.
You haven't been around too many of my mess ups. I don't know how many times on the podcast I'll say something, I'll start stuttering and saying and I'm like, Aaron, I'm gonna delete that. Just forget everything I said, and I'll make like a little time note where I go back and delete it before we publish it. So, it doesn't happen too often, but every now and then it will.
Since you've said that, I don't mind being totally transparent. When I started, because I was doing a podcast before I was on YouTube, and it became one of the YouTube things we did. This was back in 07, 08. I used to edit out every in a podcast.
Yeah, me too.
I don't do that
now.
Anymore.
I'm just kind of like, I don't.
Even to this day, though, doing shows live really helps me to get the thing made and just do the best I can in the take I'm doing. Because if it's live, I can't shut the camera off. When I do pre-recorded stuff, sometimes I'll start 4 or 5 times. I still do this. I won't be real happy with my opening. I'll have to... I'll talk for 5 minutes and have too many places where I know I'm going to have to edit things out, and I'll go, I guess I'll just start over. And sometimes I can go for half an hour before I've started making the video. If I'm making a live show, I do not have that luxury. And you know what? I'll go back and listen to myself, and it's, call me conceited, it's really useful to listen to yourself when you do this. And when I go back, I don't listen to everything I make, but it helps you to, it helps you get better at certain things and figure out mistakes you're making. More importantly, though, very often I'll think something went really poorly, and I'll go back and listen to it and go, no, that was fine. And so you need that, especially if you have if you're like me, where like in the moment you'll be really worried that it was terrible, because your perception of it is so different when you're doing it than it is later on when you go back and look at it. And so I find that it's really useful to go back and listen to myself and go, oh yeah, no, I guess that was okay. And so when I'm doing these live shows and I've only got the one take, there's a part of me that's like, well, it'd be really nice if I could start over if it didn't go so great. And I'll go back and listen to it and be like, yeah, it was fine. We're good.
Not too bad. Yeah. Yeah, same thing.
We got all of that out of how are you today?
I'm still thinking about those donuts.
Man, a lot of stuff from Disney. I am more interested in all the Star Wars, Marvel, and other things. Please keep up the awesome work you do. Thanks so much. Yeah, there's other Disney stuff we didn't even talk about. You mentioned Willow. I'm sure there's other announcements. We'll talk about some of that stuff later. Yeah. I am a little bit unsure as to how much of this stuff is all just going on streaming. It really sounded like it's all Disney Plus. It really sounded like nothing is theatrically releasing. Or are they not telling us for sure about some things because they're hoping later in the year they can release theatrically? Or have they decided to follow suit with HBO Max? Well, if they're not putting any of their movies in the theater for a whole year, we're not either. I'm a little unsure about what's happening with all that.
Yeah. That's what I was assuming too. I just assumed everything was streaming. I honestly didn't take any of that as like a movie trailer. So, yeah.
In 1 year, we are going to find ourselves constantly saying the phrase, you remember movie theaters?
Yeah. Well, it's like, yeah, now if my wife and I are lucky enough to get a babysitter, it's like, well, let's go to the movies. I'm like, there's nothing to watch. It's just like, yeah. Some movies or some theaters are streaming old movies, which is kind of fun, but yeah.
Mr. Roboto says it's a show about different stories in the Star Wars galaxy cap, like the Twilight Zone. Oh, so you're saying that you wanted like an anthology show. But are you just making up a name for it? Or are you saying that was a thing that existed that I didn't know about? I just the way you wrote that, I'm like, is that a real title of something? I don't know what that is. Yeah, I'd be fine with an anthology Star Wars show. It seems like the tack they're taking instead is, people seem to still care about Star Wars. We apparently just didn't make Star Wars that anybody liked before. A lot of it anyway. And now with Mandalorian, we're proving we can kind of go off the beaten path and do a thing that doesn't cost $6 billion. And people will still watch it. Oh my God, you know what it takes? The stories to be good.
Yeah. That's a revelation.
It's not that darn complicated, you guys. Lewis Cox, £2 super chat. Cap, stop announcing things. I can't. I mean, I'd love to.
Stop it.
but I have to. There's so many things to announce. Chewbacca's Lover, $5 super chat. Just a couple more here. I'm done with the MCU. Only seeing Spider-Man 3 for Tobey Maguire. Wow. And I'm hearing a lot of that. I saw this in the comments before we started talking of some people saying. I don't think it was just Chewbacca's Lover, but I've seen this with other folks around also. I don't like this current iteration. I don't like the MCU. It's too, comedic based. It's the same movie every single time. I don't wholeheartedly agree with that, but I get where some people get off saying that. At this point with Endgame, it's too nostalgia-driven for the thing that they've been making for 10 years. You hear a lot of that, and then people go, well, if they bring back my Spider-Man, I guess I'll reluctantly have to watch it. But it's going to be interesting to see how big the I'm done with MCU crowd is once we're finally getting new things. I think where Marvel was forced to stop making or putting out movies is fascinating. Because we got that last Spider-Man movie, which is an aftermath movie for Endgame, and then Phase 4 hasn't started. I mean, it happened right before that was even going to begin. Unless that was technically the first film of Phase 4. I don't really care about where the cutoffs are, but my point stands. It was, they put that out, and then I have no idea how Black Widow will perform. And now, we'll probably never know how that was going to perform. Because when they're forced to put, and they haven't announced this yet, but when they are probably forced to put that on Disney Plus, they're not going to show us their numbers. It's going to be really weird when we live in a world where we have MCU movies and TV shows and we don't know how many people are watching them and how much money they're making.
Yeah, and I don't know if it says anything, but I keep forgetting about the Black Widow movie. Every time I'll see, I'll come across something on the internet, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing. Like I literally, I'm forgetting about it. So I hope that's not a sign of the rest of the world.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Maybe it's just me.
Is that because you just don't care that much about a Black Widow standalone film, or is that because it's a prequel?
Maybe because I feel like the story's over with and it is a prequel. I think maybe you're right on that one. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah.
They had every chance, and again, I'm very against political and progressive pandering, but they had every chance to get ahead of DC with having the first actually decent female superhero movie, and they didn't do it, and they're crazy for not doing that. That's crazy. It's not hard. They never had a good... It could have been the worst movie in MCU's stable, and it would have been the first half-decent female superhero-led movie we've ever had. Why would you not get ahead of that?
Yeah. Yeah, and is the new Wonder Woman coming out soon? I think that's happening, right?
Yes, and that's going to be one of the first things that drops on HBO Max simultaneous with theaters.
Oh, cool. Yeah, and I'm not. I don't keep up with DC much, but we really enjoyed that first Wonder Woman movie. I mean, I thought it was pretty good.
I adore it. That third act gets goofy. We've got a speechifying villain who won't shut up and is saying very melodramatic things. But beyond that, I really, really love that film. Bob the Hun, $2 super chat. Will you stream Knights of the Old Republic? I think that could be torture for people, potentially. I've not played a lot of action RPGs. I'm likely to do really, really badly with it, but I'll consider it. I might do that.
That one's a classic. Who am I? Where am I at? What am I doing? Like, bam, you're in the story. Like, I think that's why I like that kind of storytelling. So yeah, it's fun from the get go.
I thought you were gonna say it's a classic where the heck do I go game, and I'm not streaming one of those if I can help it.
No, it's not that open world. it's pretty streamlined.
I was gonna say if it's straightforward enough, I'll certainly consider it. I want to play that definitely. I'll be really self-conscious at first, trying to stream that, but hopefully, if I decide to do it, it'll go okay.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know because maybe I'll play along with you.
That'd be great. Yeah, and I'd love to have you on, especially because I mean, things that you and I could both play together over the internet would be awesome. But also, I need to get people to come on and just chat with me and help me read comments, because when I was playing the AVGN, the second AVGN game last night, and I had scrolling. And I couldn't read comments while the level was scrolling, and I was dying a lot. So I had like 20 minutes where I couldn't look at comments at all because the level is moving. Let's see. Lewis Cox. Sorry, Mr. Roboto, $2 super chat. Does that mean no Riverdale reviews, Cap? Yeah, no. I have no intention of ever watching that show if I can help it. It would be... I'm not going to say that because then somebody will do it. Lewis Cox, £5 super chat. It seems like the Marvel movies are still going to cinemas and then Disney Plus. I guess I don't know. I also am not sure. And I want to say that maybe they still are dicey on it themselves. It's a lot of speculation, guys. I just don't know. John Ty, is fiction out... Hi, John. Is fiction outdated for escapism in this day and age when we have YouTubers and streamers doing that already? What do you mean YouTubers and streamers doing that? Like making things escapist? Is that... I'm not sure how these things correlate, the idea of escapist fiction versus people streaming things. I certainly don't think escapist fiction is outdated. I don't think it ever can be. I think we should be able to have that. I also think that you can be escapist and thoughtful and thought-provoking at the same time. And I've been having more and more people fighting me on this, where it's like, all Cap wants is mindless, non-political, not ever thinking about anything, turn your brain off fiction. No, escapism means I can leave the world that makes me depressed behind and embrace another one for a while. That's all that means. And yes, we still need that, absolutely.
Yep.
Show me the world that wouldn't need that.
You gotta have some kind of escape. That's for sure.
Maniac Madness 11, this is the last super chat. Another one just popped in. $2 super chat. Thoughts on Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher? Have they said for sure that's who he's playing? I knew he was going to be in that Thor movie. That's interesting casting. Now, I'm not excited about that movie because I really don't like Ragnarok, and it looks like they're going more that way, and it's that same director again. But that is, and I don't trust that actress playing female Thor necessarily. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that works out. But that is interesting casting. So I'm gonna have to see it whether I want to or not. So hopefully there's something there for me. That sounds cool. I didn't know Gore was gonna be in it. I'm intrigued by that. I hope they don't make him a joke. That character is horrifying and cannot be a joke. And that might be the first Jason Aaron creation that winds up in the MCU or in a film in general, which would be really cool and very exciting. Jason Aaron had the last really major like seminal one on Thor, and just left it not too long ago. I forget who's on it now. Apparently that one's pretty good. I've not looked at it. I'm real out of the loop on current comics right now. But Jason Aaron is local. He lives here in Kansas City. I have interviewed him.
Oh, that's cool.
I have chatted with Jason Aaron a few times. He's a really, really cool guy. And I am really excited if he is getting some of his stuff adapted. Well, and of course he is, because of female Thor. That's also him. So, I mean, he's already getting adapted with that. But
oh, cool. Cool.
Jason Aaron had the first, like, million comic sold book in, like, 15 or 20 years with Star Wars #1.
Okay. Yeah, I totally did not read any Thor at all in comic. I don't read a lot of comics, but the ones I did, I never got into Thor. And I honestly thought I would hate Thor in all the movies, but you kind of came to like him all right. But I never was very interested in that character. Even when I was a kid, all the way up in teenage years.
I never was either. But you got to go back and read the Walter Simonson run from the late 70s, early 80s. That's the big. That's the main seminal Thor run. That's where a lot of the big stuff in the films come from. That's where Ragnarok was supposed to come from. They butchered it. They Gore the God butchered it horribly in my mind. But that's where a lot of that stuff is.
Did you think that movie was bad, or just didn't follow the way you wanted to in the comics?
No, it's bad.
Bad. Okay. I laugh a lot, but
I've said my piece on that. I don't even think it's a good comedy, honestly. But I'm not gonna get into that again right now. We just did a commentary on that not too long ago. Chewbacca's Lover, $5 super chat. People don't remember. A lot of people like that movie. It's fine, Nick. People don't remember that Daredevil was praised for being in the MCU and how different it was and how versatile MCU was different times. Yeah, that's true. And like 2 years ago is the thing. That only got canceled last year, and for, you know, in most people's minds, the Netflix stuff stayed canonical all the way up. And I mean, I say that people were really unhappy with the last seasons of most of those shows, so at that point they didn't care if they were canonical or not. A lot of them. Iron Fist was one of the strangest things that's ever been put on film, and yeah. Anyway. What else? Kenny Hormrickson, that's a new name. Thanks for joining us. $5 super chat. Did you know that there's evidence humans and dinosaurs coexisted 6,000 years ago rather than dinosaurs living millions of years ago before man? I did not know that. I'll have to look into that. And I've very rarely gotten paleontology questions on Geevolution.
Pretty cool. You're a master of all walks of life, Cap.
Apparently, I have no insights about that. Obviously, that's gonna change how we look at history real hard if that ends up being the case, and should make us question a lot of other things. But what if we were wrong about that?
Yeah, this reminds me of a segment of Ask Aaron, Genesis Gems. We do something similar.
It is like that. Well, usually this is. Usually this is the show. I mean, I usually just answer questions and
I love it.
And basically turn them into segments as we go along. Nick, jump in at any time, buddy.
Sure.
Maniac Madness 11, $2 super chat. What did you think the monoliths are coming from? I'm sorry, man. I don't know what we're talking about. The monoliths? This is the first show in a long time where I've had this many questions where I just go, I don't know what we're talking about. And sometimes DJ can help me fill in, and he'll be like, well, it's this thing. And Nick, you've done that for me a couple times already, but that...
Yeah,
do you have any idea what the monoliths are?
No, I'm striking out the past few.
We struck out. Nick is, speaking of versatility, Nick is one of the most well-rounded people I know. He's into a bunch of different things that he knows more about than I do. So I've got my niches, but Nick is as geeky as I am in a lot of ways, but he is a big sports guy, and so like I have
Baseball,
a lot of I have a lot of respect for you for that you're able to like balance those two fandoms the way you do, because you know video games really well, but you really know baseball.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of baseball, and it's so much fun because my oldest is developing into that, and we've been on this huge kick of watching nothing but old baseball movies. So we're watching like Rookie of the Year and Sandlot and Field of Dreams and League of Their Own, and he's eating it up. So I've been having a lot of fun going back. And then we kind of throw the sports and the retro into it. We've been collecting all the old baseball games on Nintendo and Genesis, and it's kind of fun going through that history. So yeah, huge baseball fan. But that's really I watch a couple other sports, but baseball is kind of that's my passion right there.
Well, and I mean, like you say you know baseball more than anything else, but whenever you start talking about basketball, I'm like, well, I don't know anything about basketball. Like, and I love basketball, but I don't know it. Like, and I've never been an NBA guy. Like, I've only ever followed college.
Yeah, I watch a lot of NBA. I played baseball and basketball all through school, so those were kind of my sports. I'll play fantasy football, but I don't really know the teams real well. I do numbers for a living, so like I play stats. I can look at stats and go, okay, yeah, this is the guy I want on my team. Don't know his name, but this is the guy I want.
Do you think that has anything to do with your love for RPGs? Like, does that kind of inherently make you an RPG person, just being a numbers guy?
I think so. It may correlate. That's true. Like you take risks, and you want to make sure this side of your team is big. And one of the things I always learn in RPG, you never want your guy to be just completely level. Strength, health, magic, all this stuff. You kind of want to, okay, what do I prefer? I like to kill people, and I like to take a lot of damage. Okay, strength and health, no magic. Like that's kind of how I play RPGs and my play style. Same thing with like fantasy sports. I'm like, okay, I want to make my offense like this. Let's not worry so much about defense. And yeah, maybe there may be some. I may have just made that up, pulled it out of my out of the air somewhere. But
no,
sounds good.
I think you're onto something. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know what it is, but on your podcast, I always really like listening to you talk about sports games, even though I don't know what you're talking about half the time. Like, I don't know if it's just that the passion is infectious, but I think it helps that you and Aaron can both like run with each other. And I'm like, if I was there, you would hear me for half an hour. Like, I don't know. There's something about listening to you guys talk about sports that's really fun. I don't know. I feel like I'm learning stuff, but also it's like, I think a lot of it is I have tried to sit down and play so many, because again, these guys do a Sega Genesis podcast. I've tried to sit down and play so many like 16-bit sports games that I put on for like 3 minutes and just went to something else. And when you guys start talking about them, they either start to make more sense and I'm like, okay, that's what I was supposed to be doing, or they vindicate my turning them off in 3 minutes.
Yeah, there's little. I feel like I've been a part of sports video games since the beginning, but I've watched the evolution of them, and I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and it's easy for me to see things that I appreciate more. Like when they started to show unique batting stances or unique pitching styles in games. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of attention to detail there. You probably heard me. I'll nerd out on that forever. And poor Aaron's just like, oh yeah, that's great, Nick. But that's just kind of my niche in that show. Like I love RPGs and I love fighting games and action games. But when we start talking about retro sports games, I get real excited. I always tease that I would start a retro sports podcast, but I don't think anyone would listen to it. So.
Oh, maybe that could be cool. Would you just pick like the years that you were following certain things when you were a kid, or like how would you handle that? Would it just be 90s sports? Like,
It could be. I've thought about it, but then I always kind of after I've bounced that idea off people, they're like, yeah, that might not be the most popular thing. So,
Yeah, it's fair. But I mean, I might have thought that about. I think that about a lot of podcasts. Well, see, I think it's just like somebody's making a podcast about noodles and like 3,000 people listening to it. Like,
yeah, exactly.
it's really strange. Like, there's got to be something called like the Sushi Hour or something, right? There's like 500,000 people listening to it. Like,
there probably is. There's a podcast for everything.
So, before I get back to super chats, because they're popping back in again, a couple quick things. First of all, I have got to play that Basketball Classics game. I just listened to the podcast on that. That was an indie game that some guys made a couple years ago. I'm assuming that they've got like the full version out now, and they probably have the because when you did that podcast, they hadn't put out season mode yet, and I'm assuming that's there at this point.
And huge shout out to those guys, a company called Namo Gamo. They actually designed our Bit Brothers logo for us. So they turned me into a pixelated.
That's why it's pixel art. Character. I should have put that together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because one of the designers of that game is a pixel artist, and there's only two guys working on that at all, which is nuts.
Yeah. And awesome for Aaron. Aaron's actually Aaron, my co-host. He writes music as well. Some of his chip tunes are actually on that game now. So
great.
He's part of that. So yeah, it's real cool. We found those guys through the Two Dudes in a Nest, which is part of our Bit Brothers, and we just kind of I heard them on that show first, and I just immediately just kind of fell in love with their game, and they're just great guys, and we've got this real cool kind of back and forth relationship. So yeah, they've donated to our podcast with designing some of our artwork, and I don't know, it was just a real cool little thing they've done there. But they're hoping to get that game out on the Switch and Xbox and PS4 and PS5 eventually. But yeah,
I hope they can put that on Switch. I'm not a Steam guy. I've used it. Yeah, I played the AVGN game when it first came out years ago there. But although maybe it's not as big of a deal now, because I was going to say I don't like playing games in front of my computer, except I'm streaming now.
Yeah,
so I guess I'm more okay with doing that now. So maybe it's not as big of a deal. That seems like a perfect game for handheld mode, though.
Yeah, and it's great because if even if you're not a sports games fan, most people remember Tecmo Bowl, Tecmo Super Bowl. Like that basketball game is like the essence. It's like basketball in Tecmo Bowl form. So they said that was one of their biggest inspirations for making that game. They wanted a basketball game that played like Tecmo Bowl. So if you like Tecmo Bowl and like basketball, go check out Basketball Classics. Really cool.
Let me, and then we'll get off sports, guys, I promise. Let me ask you...
Sorry.
No, not at all. I brought it up. I wanted to talk about this, because I had a thing I've always wanted to ask you. So this is going to be a really, layman question, Nick. But how do you feel, because I'm not initiated, I didn't grow up with NBA, I grew up in Lawrence, Kansas primarily, so I was a big KU fan. KU, of course, won championships while I was there, and they were huge, and then when they fell off for a while, and then I got in college, and then they won the championship in, 06, 07, and then it was huge again, and I lived in downtown when that happened, and so I was a half a mile away from campus when they won that championship, and there was no going to sleep that night. It was a problem. It was really loud everywhere, through the walls. That was back for anybody that has watched me for a long time and knows what I'm talking about. That was back when I lived and worked at a mortuary, and the mortuary was downtown. So I'm in the basement of the mortuary. Really lucky that we didn't get because I was on call that night. We was really lucky that we didn't get a call and I didn't have to go pick up a body in the middle of the night while that was happening. But anyway, I digress. So, I feel like whenever I have tried to watch an NBA game these days, I have felt like the players are all too big and they should raise the goals higher, and everybody looks like really kind of rich stuck-up people just throwing a ball around. I can't get into it. They look like they don't even take it that seriously anymore. They're just there to do the quick job they have to do so that they can make their $25 million. Am I off base on that? I don't see the attitude is weird to me.
No, and I could talk for hours about this, and I won't. But the game's changed. It's not the same game it was in the 90s and 80s. So it's a 3-point shooting game. It's all flash now, in my opinion. But I still watch it because it's basketball. But yeah, yeah. And it's funny
so
because
I'm observing something that's real then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's disappointing.
I think some of your listeners aren't enjoying the sports talk.
I just wanted you. No, I'm seeing that. It's fine. Look, we're gonna move on, okay? Give us our 10 minutes on basketball, all right? Not had Nick here before. Okay, I don't know. I've not heard about this monolith thing. I don't know if this is a real thing or what is happening. People are leaving super chats about it. Thanks very much. I'll look into it. So what's going to happen now? Is this going to be the year of the pandemic, and the next year is when we finally have to deal with like the aliens landing? Is that what's going on? Lewis Cox, $5 super or £5 super chat. There are monoliths showing up all over the world. People don't know who it is, and saying aliens might be doing it. Okay, I need to keep up more with current events, apparently. I've not heard about this. And then he leaves another £5 chat and essentially says exactly the same thing he just said. Sorry, Cap, there are monoliths showing up all around the world. People don't know what is happening and saying aliens may be doing it. Thanks for the 2 super chats, but I saw the first one. Like, you're good. Okay, I'll look into that. I did not. Have you heard about this at all?
No, not at all.
Am I being trolled with donations?
I
Is
don't
that
know.
what's happening right now? Because it wouldn't be the first time.
I'm so ignorant to current events. I live in a very small town. I just kind of turn my head.
£2
try to
super
enjoy
chat.
my
Also, aliens are. This is Lewis Cox again. Also, aliens are real, and Trump knows about them.
Nice.
Okay,
No, that's fun.
but there are lots of crazy conspiracy theories all over the place all the time, right? Like, I got to figure out what are the monoliths? What do they look like?
Surely they're coming to my hometown. I told you I live in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. It's the home of the Mothman. I'm sure you've seen the Mothman film or the movie. Or
I really think we're just being trolled. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Jedi Knight. Oh, great sage of Geek Evolution. What do you think about these monoliths? I don't know. What is happening? And then somebody else is just like, this is a weird chat tonight. Yeah, it is. I'm sorry. What was that about Mothman?
No, I was saying that may be appropriate for me to see some of these because I live in the same town where they spotted Mothman. So, Point Pleasant, that's where I live. It's all about the Mothman here. So.
Okay, Cap, do a quick Google search of the monoliths. Okay, I guess I'm doing that. Let's take a look here.
That sounds like fun.
Nick, do you know what you're reviewing next on the Gems?
Yeah, it's the Alicia Dragoon game. It's
you told me that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you said that already.
It's a side.
I knew that.
Side-scrolling game with a lot of lightning coming out of her hands and killing stuff. It's fun.
And yeah, if you have the Genesis Mini, you can play that. I have not played that yet. Do you do this? I'll buy. I mean, you play more stuff than I do probably, and you're more well-rounded than me in every way, I think. But do you have this thing where you'll buy a thing for nostalgic purposes, and it will do a lot more things than you bought it for, and you'll hardly ever do the other things you bought it for?
Yeah. Point in case, I have this little handheld RetroPie machine thing that will play a ton of games, and I use it for like 6 games maybe. Yeah, I'm with you there. But I had to have it. It looked cool, and I heard it was awesome.
Okay, so this was a mystery that has apparently already been solved. Yahoo News: California men reveal how they installed the third mysterious monolith by hauling a 400-pound steel pillar 2 miles up a trail.
Oh, this is what that is. I keep seeing these pictures pop up.
The monolith was found on December 2nd, 2 weeks after one was found in the Utah desert, and another popped up in Romania. 4 men have come forward as the makers of it, and it seems like they can prove it. If you know 2001: A Space Odyssey, you know there were 3 monoliths, he said. I'm like, there's gonna be a third. It's gonna happen. So why don't we build it? This reads like the... Oh, sorry. No, I'm just losing my my mind. No, my tabs. That sounds a lot like the kind of articles that Austin brings when we do After Dark, where it'll just like these really weird news stories that you can't even believe, but then that's a thing everybody knows about.
Yeah, I've scrolled through Facebook and seen pictures, and I didn't know in the world I was looking at, so I just kept scrolling.
And Tom put in a $2 super chat before I did that and said they are real. This is hilarious because we got a lot of super chats about that, and mystery solved. I wish they were all this easy. Oh, this is great. Nicholas, 49 super chat. Thanks, man. Thanks so much, by the way, for all the support tonight, guys. What question should I ask? Is his question. I wouldn't make it about monoliths. I would steer clear away from ask Nick something. Ask Nick anything.
Oh no.
Let's open it up for more Nick questions.
Oh no.
Guys, we are going to close up shop in 10 minutes, no matter what happens. And if there's no more super chats in the next 5 minutes or so, we'll probably go ahead and call it a day. So I'm cool taking those for another 5 minutes or so if anybody else wants to ask anything. But I'm also looking at the regular chat, so feel free to try to ask some regular stuff. And sorry I didn't get to as much pre-written tonight. The nice thing about having a moderator is he can copy and paste things the whole night and go back to things somebody asked 45 minutes ago. But that is much harder to do when I'm flying solo, but not flying solo tonight because Nick helped me to really keep it interesting. And thanks so much, buddy, because
I didn't help you I didn't help you moderate very well.
No, you didn't have to though. I really. Now you occasionally went to the chat, man. Dude, you're an absolute natural. And I really hope you enjoyed it and that you'll come back because I really enjoyed doing this.
Oh, this is great. Yeah, this is great. I can't quit smiling, so everyone's probably laughing at my goofy face. Just smile the whole time.
No, that just makes you positive. There's nothing wrong with smiling.
Yeah.
OEW.
Ooh, look
Nick,
at that. Someone's asking.
Who is winning the World Series next season? #Yankees.
Chop on. I'm a Braves fan, so sorry, not a Yankees fan. I was very heartbroken this year. The Braves lost in a very tragic fashion to the Dodgers right in the National League Division Series. So very upset in my household. All my family's a Braves fan. My dad grew up in Tampa Bay. There were no major league teams in Florida, so everyone was a Braves fan around there. And so that's my team, and they sucked this year, or sucked at the end of the year. So but yeah, Braves all the way.
How have you adjusted to watching sporting events without a lot of people in the stands, or is that still weird?
It was weird. It was very weird because I feel they were like putting sound clips out there of like people cheering, and I'm like, you can't. That's crazy. It was very odd. It didn't. Even with if I kept telling people if the Braves win this year, I'm gonna get like made fun of because that wasn't a real year. That the shortened season and all the circumstances going on. So there was a part of me that was kind of happy they didn't go all the way, but then kind of sad. But how they went out against the Dodgers. But
yeah, I don't understand those gimmicks that they've tried. Like I've heard about that, and I've heard about early on. I don't know if they're doing this anymore, but early on when we finally started opening up arenas again, they would put like cardboard cutouts in the stands.
Yeah, they did that.
That was a thing. It's just all that weird manufactured stuff. Like everybody knows that you can't have people in the stands. Like it's weird not to have crowd sounds and stuff. But like I think it's a lot better to just play it straight. Like
yeah, I live about 2 hours out of Cincinnati and 2 hours out of Pittsburgh, so we go to a lot of baseball games, and being there in person is so awesome. Like my wife can't sit down and watch a whole game with me at the house, but if she's there in person, like she loves it. So like that atmosphere adds so much to the game, and I think that kind of just was missing this year. So.
Well, and you can't tell me that doesn't affect the way people play. Like it's got to affect the games. Yeah. You can't tell me that the stats would be exactly the same if there were actually people there.
Yeah. I think people have that little bit, especially when you're playing away and the home crowd's giving you crap and people are heckling you. You're going to get mad. You're probably going to do worse or do better depending on what kind of personality you have. But, you're right.
Somebody asked what I would do if I met an alien. I would immediately not believe it, and I would like do my research first before I had any kind of reaction. But it wouldn't be like, I don't know. I've done the genre thing for so long, and that seems like, I don't want to say inevitable, but like it would be a surprise if we found them just because the universe is so vast that I think there's likely life in somewhere else, but it's probably like galaxies away. Not necessarily, but might be. So like obviously I would be surprised, but it wouldn't be like earth-shattering, like brain-breaking, like, oh man, the laws of physics are different now. Like that works within my understanding of the universe. If somebody was able to lift off the ground and fly under their own propulsion, that breaks your understanding of how physics work. And so that would be harder to wrap your mind around. John Ty, this will be the last super chat for the night. Nick, what would you do if you had Superman's powers for a year?
For a whole year, wow.
Yeah.
Jedi
Knight asked that question. Sorry, I just didn't see it as I was scrolling back up, so I wanted to answer it because it was fun. Go ahead.
Yeah, so first one's probably kind of sappy. I definitely want to take my kids for a flight around the world. That'd be kind of fun. Let them experience that. But then
Sure.
this is funny. I have this huge dead tree that's just about to fall behind my house, and I really need to get that thing cut down. So I think I would use my laser, the laser coming out my eyes, to trim it from the top down. That way it doesn't fall and destroy my house or any of my buildings. So that would happen. And maybe I could contract some of that service out to other folks who need some trees taken down.
I sort of feel like you could set your sights like a little higher.
I mean, it's pretty high up, so it'd have to look pretty high. So. No, I'm kidding. That
we
was
don't
bad.
have to. Nick's a dad joke guy. You get used to it.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, where it's like you don't have to worry about Nick becoming a horrifying despot and taking over the world because his ambitions end at fix the foliage in my yard.
I'm a true dad. Maybe clean my new Blackstone grill I got out there. Help it, season it a little bit with the laser. I heard that's good. A little olive oil. There you go.
Nick, anything else you want to plug or anything you're just burning to talk about before we call it a night?
I don't think so. Just if you're into retro games at all, check us out at genesisgemspodcast.com. We're on, like Cap said, we're on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and all that good stuff. So give us a check if you like retro games. It's fun, very lighthearted, and a lot of dad jokes.
Real quick, Mr. Roboto, just doing one more. Aliens Visit, they are fans. What do you do? What do you mean, fans of the channel, or like just fan in a fandom? Yeah, no, I would actually be a lot more surprised if I met an alien that had seen Geekvolution than I would just seeing an alien. That would be the first thing that tipped me off that it's probably not actually from another planet. But if they were, I'd be like, oh, that's like, what if you found out that like here you're kind of a small potatoes YouTube channel, you do okay, but like not a lot of people know who you are. But there's another planet where you're like PewDiePie or something. Like everybody knows who you are. Like that'd be crazy. And then I'm like, well, that makes sense. There's like a weird sensibilities for an alien planet, but here on Earth, it's real niche. Anyway, Nick, I really hope you had a good time because I'm totally gonna
I did.
back.
I hope I wasn't completely awful. So
No, you were great, man.
Yeah, this is, like I said, this is all new to me, so it was fun. I really enjoyed it.
No, I really appreciate you because with all the stuff we had to talk about tonight, I mean I could have gone off solo and done it, but this was much more fun and relaxing. So thanks so much for helping me out and for chatting about it. And I'm glad that you that you've seen some of the Marvel stuff and knew what we were talking about.
Yeah, cool, absolutely. Hope I didn't bore anyone with the sports talk, but yeah.
You know what? Honestly, I don't care if you did.
Okay, well, there you go. Can't make everybody happy.
I'm just kidding. Exactly, but I try not to stick on that for too long.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, once again, you guys are fantastic. Sure appreciate you. I'm going to come back in probably 20 minutes, half an hour or so, and just finish up Telltale. So I'll be streaming again in just a little bit because I'm a crazy person and I just can't stop streaming. And I won't be on for too long, probably, just to finish that one out. And then we'll be back on Tuesday for Marvel Mania. And what else is happening? That's the big stuff. I probably won't be able to get a rewind out this weekend. I've got writing group going on with the patrons that do the writing group with me. We got to do that this weekend. So I'm going to be working on that for the next couple days. So anyway, that's what's happening. But we'll have another Captain Logan show next Thursday, and check out the Rewind podcast if you like to listen to podcasts and listen to it that way. That just started last week. That is on Spotify. You can just search out Superhero Rewind, or I put up a video about it the other day, so the link is there. Spotify, Anchor, those are the main places to find that. The entire archive is there, going all the way back 11 years. You can listen to any review from that whole period. And I'm also, Nick, about to start doing the ranking shows, where I'm gonna rank all 128 films that I've reviewed. There's rewinds on a lot of other things, but I'm just ranking the movies, and I just recorded the first part of that. I hope there's not too much dead air in that, because it was just me. and I'm doing it by category of rating. And man, and I'm starting at the bottom, right? Rewind I rate on a 0 to 4 scale. So 0 is terrible and 4 is the best it can possibly be. So kind of like the Roger Ebert 4-star scale. And the 0.5s and the 1s were really easy to rank, but boy, once I got to 1.5 and 2, that got really, really hard. So
that's cool. Yeah, the ranking's fun, and we had a good time. Like we had to go back in time and re-rank everything we did, and that was a fun episode. So yeah, cool.
It was fun to be a part of it.
Yep.
I had only been on one of those shows, so I was able to help 1/5 of those.
Yep. You see how easy I am. Aaron's like, put it here. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. I'm kind of a pushover in that sense.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get going. Thanks a lot for listening, folks. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan, and that was Nick Stevens of Genesis Gems. Please go check out the podcast. I think if you like retro games, you will love it, and we're going to get going. Bye, folks.